Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. To today's video, what are we doing today? Well, we're going to be ranking every unit in the original Shining Force game. Every playable character based on how good I think they are. I really like Shining Force 1 and 2, and I really like talking about these games, and that's why I'm doing this video. So what are some metrics I use? Well, number one, I'm not going to be taking into account grinding, and there's two reasons for this. One, because this game really isn't all that difficult, and grinding it kind of just breaks the game, and just breaks characters, because what is stopping you from that point? Leveling everybody up all the way, then there's really not much of a point comparing characters. Everyone's pretty much going to be the same anyways. It's really not going to matter at that point. Even in the end game, enemy stats, they don't get super high, so even if somebody does have some points over someone else, it really won't matter that much. And that's another thing. I'm going to be looking at how they do all throughout the game, not just at the end. So, while somebody's end game might be a little bit better than somebody's early game, we're still counting in what it takes to get there. And the other reason I'm not counting grinding is because I think it's boring, and yeah. But everything else, what spells they get if they're a mage, how much attack they have, how much defense they have, if they have any utility, if they fly, what's their movement, all that's going to be taken into account. So let's get into it. Why don't we? So first unit is Max. We're going to put him in A tier. I should probably explain the tiers real quick before I do that. S tier, you're pretty much always going to want to have these around. They're really strong, and that's about it. A tier, they might have a couple minor flaws, but overall, still really solid. You're going to want them. B tier, their flaws might be a little more pronounced, but they're still going to be really good. They're still going to serve you well. But it might take a little bit of time for them to really get going, or maybe they're just not as good as some of the other units. C tier, they're alright. You can definitely use them if you want, if you like them, but overall, you definitely could do better. D tier, they're really not worth using, but they might have one or two things about them that stops them from being an F tier, which F tier, I just wouldn't recommend using these units. They really don't do anything. But Max. Max is the main lord of this game. You do have to use him. He's forced into every map, so it is definitely in your best interest to make him good, and he is pretty good. He has 6 move, which is pretty good. Any kind of terrain does slow him down a little bit, but he can still have 3 move, which isn't too bad. The problem I have with Max is that his start is decent, but the problem is his first levels, they're not bad, but they're not great. He can definitely, especially in attack, his defense I usually think is fine, but his attack can taper off a little bit in the mid game, which hurts him a little bit. It's not so bad where I would consider him like C tier. He'd still probably be about a B tier, but it is something worth note. But by the end game, he does he gets ridiculously strong. He gets the Sword of Light and the Chaos Breaker, gives him a crap ton of attack, and he's just gonna have a lot of attack by that point. He can one-shot things. He's got a lot of defense. He does give you a game over if he dies, which it does reset the map. He also has a spell called Egress, which lets you leave the map. It's only really useful if you're grinding, or if maybe you mess up in the start and want to save him, because you do lose half your money every time he dies, which does definitely suck, especially early on. But I'm not going to count that, because I think his bulk is good enough. He's got good HP and good defense. He's not too much in danger of dying, so I don't think that limits him too much. You should still definitely send him in the front lines to attack. His main problem is just he does stagger a bit in the mid game, just due to not getting level ups early. But yeah, and by the end he is S tier. But since he does kind of have that point, a little bit like before he promos, and then he needs a few promoted level ups before he really starts snowballing in attack. But other than that, he's solid. I like him. Next up we got Luke. Luke is also going to be A tier. He's very similar to Max, but I think he's a lot more consistent. He can also equip swords and axes generally have just some pretty good axes, give him good attack. His attack really doesn't taper off at all in the mid game, so by that point he's better. But eventually Max catches up and he definitely overtakes him. But he's still very useful. And one thing I don't like about this guy is his defense is also pretty solid, but his HP takes a little while before he starts really getting HP. So he can be kind of a sitting duck when it comes to mages. Now, it's not so much worse than other units where I think it's a deal breaker, but it is something to keep in mind. But eventually that issue does kind of fix itself. And yeah. But A tier, 6 move as well, solid. Does quite a bit of damage and has pretty good defense. It's very useful. Next we have Teo. She is the first mage you get. I'm gonna put her in S tier. What does suck about mages is they only have 5 move, so they can fall behind sometimes. But yeah, magic is very useful in this game. It does not necessarily a set amount of damage, but it does go through defense. But there's not really any way to make it do any more damage besides enemies that either resist or are weak to it, which I don't even think is that many overall, at least from what I noticed. But Teo gets she uses blaze spells, which are the weakest kind, but you know, because she joins right at the start, and coupled with the fact that she's very quick to get the higher level blaze spells, it almost doesn't matter for most of the game. She gets blaze 4 at level 20. I mean, that's blaze 4 does a crap ton of damage and only has a cost of 8 MP. So yeah, her MP takes a little bit before it kicks in, but it's not too big a deal. And Blaze also does have the smallest MP cost, so it's not the biggest deal, but it is something to keep in mind. She can run out of MP in the start, but once she's trained up, you really shouldn't have any MP problems. And just being able to magic can it hits in like a cone, or not a cone, like I guess square. It's like It's like it hits here and then it extends out by one. It hits in a plus formation. So yeah, she can hit up to 5 targets. You're probably not gonna see that often, but she could definitely hit 2 or 3 enemies if they're bunched up, and this is very good for crowd control. And she gets those higher level spells pretty quickly, as mentioned before, so I think she's the best spellcaster because of that. And I'm going to put her in S tier because, yeah, very useful. By the end, she definitely is a bit lacking, just being stuck with Blaze, but I don't think it's too big of a deal. And, you know, until like the last few maps, I think she's leaps and bounds better than everyone else, so I think it's fair to put her in S tier because of that. Next we got Hans. Hans is the first archer. Hans is unfortunately going to be a D tier. He does join early, which is nice, so there is plenty of time to start leveling him up. The issue with Hans is that his stats just don't grow at early levels, especially his attack. In like 5 levels, you'd be pretty lucky to have him attack once. So he kind of has a similar problem to Max in a way, where his attack just lags behind. Like, even though he joins right at the start, he's gonna fall behind every other unit. Like, even your healers are probably gonna do more damage than him, but that is also for another reason that I will get into. But this definitely does make him pretty difficult to use. He can't attack at range, which is nice. He isn't as badly affected by terrain as other units. He still gets slowed down a little bit, but he could go through like forests and mountains better than most, which is nice. But just, yeah, and by the end I think he does have the best stats. I'm not even sure about that. There might even be someone else who even has more attack than him. The late game arrows are very useful. However, using him until you get them is just, I don't think it's worth it. And he's usually one of the first people I ditch just because he just does not do damage. So, and all he's really good for is damage. So I don't think he's that useful. Another thing is, it seems like you get the arrow upgrades a lot slower than the other weapons. So that also hurts him because, you know, someone like Max or Luke or Ken, who uses spears, will get a nice boost of attack when they upgrade their weapons. It takes longer before Hans gets that, which also definitely cuts into his attack quite a bit, which was already very lacking, and that's why he's in D tier. So Ken, he's our first centaur. This game gives a lot of centaurs. I'm going to put him in B. Now, the thing about Ken is centaurs get 7 move, which is really helpful. Allows them to position themselves better, and, you know, if they have to fall behind a little bit to heal up, they can return back to the front lines a lot better than most. So that's really nice. But on the other hand, he is really badly affected by terrain. He goes down to 2 move going through forest, which is going to be the same as Teo and some other characters who have 5 move, which definitely means he is hurt by terrain, and there is a lot of terrain in this game. There are some maps that are just coated in terrain, and yeah, he can definitely fall behind, especially compared to any unit that flies, which does suck. Spears, though, are a pretty good weapon. They do have ranged options, which definitely helps. It gives him more range overall. because he can move 7 spaces, and then he can attack from 9 spaces away, which very useful. Okay, my apologies, had to make a quick cut there. As I was saying, his attack is pretty good. It's about equal to Luke's, maybe a little bit less, but he does have the range from spears. So I do think that's pretty good. As far as his defenses, they are kind of weird. In the start, he gains a lot of HP, but he doesn't get that much defense. Now, he does have a lot of HP, but that HP can melt very fast, but it does make him pretty good against mages. There's not too many mages early on, but it definitely is something to consider. He definitely probably is your best character to go against mages. Also helps that he's got a lot of moves, so he can get them. Yeah, he can get them all right. But as he levels up, he kind of stops getting HP, and he starts getting a lot of defense. So weirdly enough, the stats kind of end up equaling out. It's really weird, but it's pretty cool. But not much more to say about Ken. He's alright. Pretty good centaur. Next up we got Lo. Lo is the first healer, and he's alright. He's basically a walking heal bot. My problem with Lo is that he gets the higher ranked heal spells pretty quickly. Healers do kind of level slowly in this game, but he gets them pretty quickly. He, however, does not get any of the... He doesn't get any aura. He doesn't get aura spell. And aura is basically a group healing spell, and it really sucks that he misses out on that. In its place, he gets detox, which cures stuff. Not very helpful, I think. There's not even that much like any kind of like poison in this game. And he does also get quick and slow. Slow is basically, it lowers the enemy agility and defense by a little bit, while quick does the opposite. It buffs your attack and agility by a little bit. Pretty useful sometimes, but it will eat through his MP, because that's another thing. His MP, definitely at the start, he can run out of MP very quickly, and then at that point he really isn't doing much. Now, few chapters in, or a few maps in, you do get access to the power staff, which really does help out his attack, and he kind of does become comparable to these two in attack. His move is 5, so it's not great, but I would definitely recommend giving him some kills during that time, just so he can he won't fall behind as much. But even if he does fall behind, because he's a healer, he does get a pretty steady stream of EXP, which is nice. But overall, C tier, because yeah, he's a healer. It's kind of all he does. Doesn't really do it that well, funnily enough, but yeah, he's alright. Next up we got Gong. Gong is another healer. You get him in the second map. You actually can get him in the first map, but I usually don't bother. So the thing about Gong is he's supposed to be like a jack of all trades type unit. He's a lot like monks from D&D. He can heal, he can attack, and he has definitely the best defense out of all the healers. Which may sound nice, but the other healers can already usually take a hit or two, and his defensive isn't even that much better. So I don't think that's supposed to be I don't think that's terribly useful. Now he is he is supposedly the offensive mage, which I put in air quotes. He does have the best attack, but the problem is his attack isn't even really that great, and he does not get staves. He doesn't get the power staff like Low and like somebody else who joins soon will. So that really just hurts his attack, and it really does take a while of using him before he really starts getting a lot of attack. So he's very similar to Hans and Max, more so Hans, where his attack just falls behind. Since he's healing, it kind of makes up for it, but he also has pretty low MP. He runs out very quickly, so he can't really heal that much. He gets... I have it wrote down. Yeah, he gets his higher ranked healing abilities pretty much little after Low level wise, so that's nice. He does actually get Aura, only Aura 1, but that's pretty good. Problem is it comes at level 30, and by that point, one, it's really hard to get him to level 30. I mean, that's gonna take some time, and by that point, there's other people with Aura, and I really don't think it's that useful, if you even see it. But yeah, that's Gong. I think Low's a bit useful since, honestly, he kind of does have better offense for a little while, and he's just a better healer. But Gong's alright, you know. I really feel like you can't put someone who heals lower than C tier, because healing's always going to be useful. Next up we got Gort. Gort is very similar to Luke. They are essentially the same unit. Just Gort joins a few maps after. Now I do think Gort is a little more useful. And why is that? Well, Gort is like the defensive warrior, I believe is what their class is, while Luke's the offensive warrior. Generally, Gort will have a little more defense, Luke will have a little more attack. I do generally value attack over defense in this game. I think it's better to kill things rather than sit there and tank them, but Gort doesn't really suffer the HP problem that Luke does, so he is quite a bit more survivable. And even though he has less attack, I think that makes him easier to level up, but other than that, they really are pretty much the same. 6 move, deals very good damage. He does become very tanky as well in the end game. After promo and after he promotes and after he levels up for a bit, he starts getting ridiculous amounts of defense, and it's kind of at the point by then where it is quite a bit more than it's quite a bit more defense than Luke has offense over him, if that makes sense. So I'd say at the end he might be a little better, but it's really preference to which one you prefer. I'd usually say Gort, but if you want to make the argument that Luke's better, go right ahead. I might even agree with you depending on the day. So Mei is the second centaur you get. She, oddly enough, is kind of the opposite of Ken. She has a lot of defense, but kind of lowish HP. Still a bit better than Luke's, for example, but you know, you gotta be a little bit wary with mages. She also has less attack than him, but eventually she does catch up, so it's not that big of a deal. And I don't even think she ever really surpasses him in attack. Like Ken though, her growths do swap, so she gets a lot of defense but not a lot of HP. But after a while, she starts getting a lot of HP but not a lot of defense. So while in the early and mid game they are quite different, by the end they kind of are about the same. And Mei's attack pretty much catches up to Ken's, and they're really pretty much the same unit. Which is Kind of weird that they did that, but yeah, I think it's cool, as I said. But since Ken has a little more attack, I will put him higher, just pretty much ditto for what I said about Ken. Spears are nice, can attack from range. Attacks alright, it's not super high, but she definitely gets the job done. So that's why I put her in B. So next unit we got Chris. Chris is the third healer. This game gives you a lot of healers right at the start, which unfortunately I do think makes them all a little bit worse. But I think Chris is the best healer. Why is that? Well, she's going to be the first unit to get the Aura spell, and Aura's really good. I will put her over. I'd probably say they're a little bit better. But yeah, she's the first to get Aura. She gets Aura at level, let me see. She gets Aura 1 at level 20. I think she only ever gets Aura 1, but she will most likely be your first Aura user, which that alone is pretty good. So that makes her a good healer. She also gets quick and slow, like Low does. He can get them to rank 2. She can only get them to rank 1, which does kind of suck, but I don't really even use the upgraded version of those. I rarely even have Low get to that, so not a super big deal. But yeah, another healer. Unlike Gong, those benefit from the power staff. So she is a bit underleveled, but again, she's a healer, so she does get a pretty steady stream of EXP, and I do think it is worth feeding her a couple of kills during this point when she has the power staff. Just gotta be careful about her low defenses, but yeah, but even if you don't, she's still gonna be most likely your first unit to get Aura, and that just makes her a pretty good healer. And I also find she has better MP than Low. So she's more useful as a healer. She can cast more spells, and that's useful. Healing's good. Keeps your other units alive. Next up we got Henri. Henri is the second mage to join. I'm gonna put her probably at the top of A tier. Now she does join a little bit underleveled, especially in comparison to Teo here, or I might have been calling her Tao. I swapped between the two. I apologize. She's basically the ice mage. She gets she only goes up to Blaze 2, but she does get Blaze 3 and 4, which are quite a bit better than Blaze 3 and 4. It's a little bit later, and she is a little bit behind. She gets Blaze 3 at level 16, and Blaze 4 at level 23, which is a little bit later than Teo. So that is why I put her a little bit lower. But Freeze 3 and Freeze 4, very useful. Very good for just a nice cluster of enemies. Deals a lot of damage. Gets like a bunch of EXP, even without killing. So she could level up pretty quickly. She snowballs pretty hard. She does actually, after she promotes, she actually does get quite a bit of defense, which does make her more survivable. Sorry, I was reading something. But it does make her more survivable. Part of me actually kind of wants to do this, but I'm kind of undecided. I'm going to leave it like this for now, but if you want to argue they should be swapped, that's fine. Again, like these two, it really probably would just depend on the day. I agree with you, but just for being underleveled, little bit, taking a little bit of time, needing a bit of work to get the higher level spells, I'm going to knock her down to A tier, but still very useful. And she does also get Bolt 1 and 2, which are really useful. Bolt 2 especially hits in a huge area. And Bolt is the most damaging. Uses a lot of MP. Her MP is pretty good. Pretty much the same as Teo. I think Teo might get a little more at the start, but it's not so different that I think, you know, if one's running out of MP, the other one will most likely be running out of MP. Definitely better later on, but I think Teo is best in the early, is better in general in the early and mid game, which I do value more than Henri being a little bit better in the end game. But you know, just her good end game though is what keeps her an A, and she still is really good in the early and mid game. She just kind of joined a bit later, so she does lose a few points for me there as well. But I like her. So next up we got Arthur. He's going in D tier. He is another centaur. The problem with Arthur is his stats are really low, and he needs a lot of level ups before he starts getting stats. Like, he starts behind and he's going to stay behind, and that just really sucks. He does get magic, which is a cool niche, and I do like Arthur for that. The problem is he only gets level 1 spells, and he gets them kind of late. He gets Blaze 1 at level 15, Blaze 2 at level 20, and Blaze 1 at level 20, and Bolt 1 at level 25. And out of all those, the only really useful one is Bolt 1. If he got as well, Blaze 1 and Freeze 1, they can only hit one spot, so it's not even like he can hit like a huge area like these two can. I mean, by the time he's getting his magic, they could probably be on their level 3 spells, so it's really just not worth it. It's more of an afterthought, I find. Statistically, yes, if you give him all the levels he needs, which he needs a lot, he will be the best paladin, but just getting there is very tedious. You do not want to early promote this guy. If he does, he's gonna be terrible. I've done it before, and he is awful. He just lags behind, and for that, I really can't put him. Even though he does use spears, he can't attack at range. He is mounted. He just really struggles, and it's gonna take either a lot of grinding, or he's gonna finally become good by like chapter 5, chapter 6. So I don't value him that high. At least if he got some of the higher level, like if he got his I really do wish they went a little bit more on the magic gimmick. Like maybe he could get at least if he got Blaze 2 and Blaze 2 and Freeze 2, and maybe he got them a few levels earlier, I'd say maybe it is worth it just for that, but he doesn't, and magic is really just an afterthought on him. His MP is pretty crappy too, so he can't even use them that much, which I guess is good that he only has the level 1 spells. Not really. So yeah. Next up we got the two Birdmen. First one is Balbaroy, or Ballbuster, as my friend Ben affectionately calls him. Shout out if you're watching, Ben. You better be. And Amen. I think Balbaroy's B tier unit. Amen's a C tier. I think that's a she actually. So the Birdmen are our first flying units. They also have 7 move like the Cavs. Now what's really nice about flying is they don't get the terrain benefits, which not a big deal, but it does definitely cut into their bulk a little bit. Their bulk, I'd say it's about average. It's not super high, but it's not super low. They definitely can survive, but just being able to fly is very useful. Couple that with the 7 move. They can they don't get slowed down by terrain, which is very useful in any map covered in terrain. They can go over walls, they can go over cliffs, they can go over pits. They are very flexible in that regards. And you can almost, even if you're not using them for combat, you can use them as like item, like pack mules, which is pretty helpful. Like these two, they kind of have an attack and defense. Balboroy has more attack. Amen, I think is how you say that. Yeah, Amen. I apologize if that's not how it's pronounced, but she has more defense. I said usually it kind of is minor, but the problem is Balboroy's attack is already fairly lacking, and Amen just having it worse just really does suck. It's really hard to get her kills. She eventually catches up in attack, but it does take some time, and her defense, I really don't find she's that much survivable in Balboroy. So I really don't think the defense is an added boon, but yeah, they're not here because of their stats. They're here just because they fly, and it's very useful. Generally, I recommend Balboroy, just because I think he's definitely easier to use for sure, and I generally value offense, but you know, I can't put her too low just because of the flying. It's just good utility. So next up we got Diane. Very similar to Hans. Unlike Hans, her start... Well, Hans' start is okay. The problem is, in his first level ups, he just gets nothing. And it takes him a while before he starts actually getting level ups. Diana... I think is it Diane or is it Diana? Diane, okay. Diane doesn't have that period where she just doesn't get stats. It's kind of like by the time she joins, Hans is probably going to be at the point where he starts getting good level ups, or it's still going to be more. But it is nice that you don't have to baby her. And her starting stats actually aren't that bad. She's got a decent amount of attack in her early level up, so I do usually use her for a little bit just to do some chip and help level up my other guys. At the end, she is worse than Hans by a little bit, but just I don't think that matters much. They're about the same. Part of me does want to do this, but it's funnier to put Hans in D tier, because she does start out pretty good, and doesn't have that period where it's just a pain to use her, so part of that might be just bias, but I don't really care. I don't like this guy, so I'm gonna be biased. Lol. But yeah, can attack from range, eventually gets 3 range. She's alright. Not much more to say. Again, not as slowed down by terrain. And we'll have okay attack, but again, attack's not that good, and all the archers really have is attack. That's really the only stat they want, and when your attack's just okay at that point, I don't think you're very useful, but she is definitely usable, but yeah, she's alright. That's why I put her in C tier. Xylo, on the other hand, has amazing attack. Now, Xylo's actually going to go in S tier. He is one of my favorites. Thing about Xylo is he has 7 moves, so same as the Centaurs, but unlike them, he does not get slowed down by terrain. He gets slowed down by mountains, but he can move through forests without any penalty. So it kind of makes him a pseudo flyer in a way. He does get terrain bonuses, but mountains, the gray mountains, those will slow him down. He can't go over the gray mountains at all. Can't go over like cliffs and walls. So it's not as good as flying in my opinion, but having the terrain bonuses is nice, and just he's still going to be one of your most mobile units in any kind of Fortis or yeah, any kind of map with a lot of terrain, which, as I've said before, there is quite a bit in this game. Now, the other thing about Xylo is his stats are really high. He has some of the best attack in the game. His defense is really high. So, and he never falls behind. Like even if your birdmen are going on ahead, he's going to be right there next to him. So he can get a lot of EXP really quickly, and that's really nice. Now, one problem he does have is, so the way promotions work in this game is, it increases your stat gains, but you do lose a bit of stats. Now, since Xylo does not use weapons, and this is actually true for Gong as well, but since I really don't use Gong as an attacker much, I haven't felt the need to bring it up until now, but Xylo can... He kind of goes back. Instead of having like the best attack, he's kind of equal. He's very equal to units like Gort and Ken and Mei by that point. So it does suck a little bit, but after a few promoted levels, he pretty much goes right back, and then he just continues getting a crap ton of attack, crap ton of defense, super mobile, and that just makes him really useful. He's pretty much a centaur, but better. Can't attack from range, but not that big a deal. And he will be one of your strongest attackers. Super bulky as well, so perfect frontliner. I love Xylo. I will be putting one unit over him though, just because his attack, I say it suffers, but that's really only in comparison to how he is before that, because his attack still is really high. He's still going to do a lot of damage. So that's why I don't want to put him in A tier. And he starts off really useful as well. That's another important thing. Don't need to grind this guy up at all. He's pretty much good to go. Speaking of good to go, we have Pell? I've never been sure on that pronunciation, but he's another very good unit. I'm gonna put him in A tier. Another centaur. Difference is his stats are just ridiculous at the start. He starts at level 8, and that's roughly what these two. And we're not gonna count him. It's roughly what they'll roughly be around level 10, and his stats are still going to be higher than that. Insane amount of attack, insane amount of bulk, and for his first like 5 or so level ups, he still gets decent stats. His growth is really weird. When you first get him, he gets stats, and then he kind of stops getting stats, and then you promote him, and he starts getting stats again, and then he kind of stops getting stats. But he is carried by his bases and those early level ups. He's good to promote at level 15, because that's about when he stops getting level ups, and then he just keeps getting them. Now, by the end, is he the worst paladin? Yeah, I suppose, but just because his stats are so high, he's not even that much lower, and just being so much better than every other centaur in this game, I think that just makes him the best centaur by far. Put him in A tier. He's also got good move, which, you know, at any kind of open map or any like field map, very useful. Does have the terrain problems, but you know, it's about half and half, I'd say. And his stats are really good. Um, you know, even if he isn't the best, I still think you should keep using him just because he's carried by his bases and those early level ups, as I said. And he never really even becomes bad, so yeah. But A tier for him. Very good. Next we got Jogurt. He's going to be an F tier. He is a joke unit, but he's pretty funny. He has 1 in every stat, and he cannot level up, so yeah, no survivability, no attack. He's always going to go last. Yeah, he has 7 move, though, so if you want to stick some items on him and have him be a pack mule, don't do that. That's bad advice. You use anyone else for that. Don't use him for that purpose. That's bad advice. But he's funny. If he does level up, he gets a Jogurt ring, which you give it to one of your guys, it makes him look like Jogurt. What does this do? Nothing. But you can kill an evil dragon as a hamster wearing a helmet. That's pretty funny, right? So, you know, obviously he goes in S tier. Yeah. Next we got Vankar, I think is how you say his name. Let me check. Vankar. I'm gonna say Vankar. I'm gonna put him in C. He's gonna be at the top of C, I think. He's yet another centaur. He's alright. That's really all I have to say. He's got his stats are just good. They're just pretty good. Bit underleveled. Pretty good defense, decent enough attack. There's really not much to say about him though. I really don't use him because I like the other centaurs a lot more. Even the other centaur you get, I like him a bit more, but yeah, he's alright. I really don't know what to say about him. Kokichi. Kokichi's going in B tier. Kokichi is he's a lot like the Birdman. He has 1 less movement than them, but he can fly. And unlike them, he uses lances, so he does get range, which is nice. And as I talked about with these two, flying is just very useful. And unlike them, his attack's really good. I mean, it pretty much rivals the centaurs. Maybe a little bit worse. He does start a bit underleveled, but he's not that hard to get kills, especially in any kind of terrain maps, because he can stay ahead with people like Xylo and other units, which is really helpful. His defense is pretty low, somewhat low HP as well, so do need to be careful, but you know, because he's so maneuverable, if he needs to retreat for a turn to go to a healer, he very easily can, and his defense isn't so low that he can't survive a couple of hits. He can't survive a few hits, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't think the low defense really hurts him that much. It hurts him a bit, just as well as just not having like as good stats, but flying alone is just very helpful. Yeah, even on like the field maps, because he can move around terrain, he can move up and down cliffs. If there's a pit on the map, he can go over that. So, you know, despite not having the 7 move, it's still pretty good. And I like Kokichi. I think he's super underrated. If he had a little bit better stats, definitely would be A tier, but I'm gonna put him at the top of B. Yeah, very underrated. People sleep on this guy all the time. And we got Domingo. Domingo, in my opinion, is probably the best unit in this game. He's basically a flying Henri, and that's really good. Now, he does start at level 1, but he can't promote. But I don't like to look at it as he can't promote. I like to look at it as he starts promoted. He gets a lot of stats right away, while Teo and Henri are still probably unpromoted. I don't think it's worth promoting mages early, so they're going to stay in their unpromoted form for most likely until level 20. That's what I recommend doing. But he will start getting his level ups pretty much right away, and he gets, unlike most mages, this guy has ridiculous amounts of defense, like really high, as in like the best defense. So he's super survivable. Even if he runs out of MP, his MP is pretty good. His actual attack stat is weak, but can't equip any weapons. But even if he runs out, he's still useful as just a meat shield. He can fly, gives him super good maneuverability. His move is only it's either 4 or 5, which does suck. He's a very good candidate for the mobility ring, though, just because he can bypass terrain. And being a magic unit, Freeze 3 gives him extra range. It does take him a while to learn. He learns Freeze 3 at level 16, which is pretty good, but it does take him until level 27 before he learns Freeze 4, which definitely does suck. But I think he's pretty good with Freeze 3, and a lot of the times he can strike first before Henri, and he's rarely in range of dying unless like enemy after enemy after enemy hits him. Like, he is really tanky. It's kind of weird that they made a flying squid really tanky, but he is a weird unit, but I love him. He does also get boost eventually. I think it's at level 27. Oh, it's actually at level 20. Oh, that's... Yeah, and boost is basically the quick spell, but better. It gives you a nice attack bonus. It doesn't give any agility, but agility is really not a super useful stat. Oh, really? Level 20. Let me check that, actually, because I feel like that's wrong. No, okay, boost at level 20. Okay, well, yeah, that's really helpful. Just, hey, makes your other guys better. Can't look down on that, I suppose. But yeah, love Domingo. He's definitely my favorite unit. So maybe in all fairness, everything considered, he should be like this, just by the fact it takes him a little while to learn Freeze 4, but I think with those qualities, he's at least better than Teo, and I would probably say Xylo is a little bit better overall, but yeah, very good unit. So next up we got Guns. I think I'm going to put him in A tier, but I'm not too sure. Gun's stats are really high. He has insane amounts of HP, insane amounts of defense. Oh, that's another thing about Domingo. He's got a lot of HP as well, so he can survive a lot of magic attacks. And a lot of attack. I mean, he hits hard, and he's gonna tank. His problem is he only has 4 movement, which is pretty lame. What is good about him, though, is that he is not affected by terrain, so on any kind of indoors map, he only has 4 move. That's pretty low. He falls behind. But on any kind of like map with a lot of terrain, he has 4 move. That's pretty good. So he's really weird in that regard, because it really just depends on the map whether or not he's going to be ahead or behind. But you know, yeah, insane amounts of attack, insane amounts of defense, even better than like Gort's defense. And even if he takes some magic shots, his HP is high. He's good at tanking those as well. And he can also, he uses spears, so he can't attack from range, so that definitely helps out due to his low mobility. I am torn between B and A. I'm gonna keep him in A for now, but we'll see. Next up, we got Ernest. Oh, I accidentally closed that page. Whoops. I don't think I'll need to look at it again, though. Ernest, he's the final centaur you get. Very similar to Vankar. Has a bit more attack, little less defense. I think attack's a bit better, so I'm going to put him above Vankar, but yeah, they're pretty much the same. I think if you trade him up all the way, he will be a little bit better than Ken and May in Endgame. Not quite as good as Arthur, but he doesn't have the lows that Arthur has either. So I like using Ernest. Again, not sure on that pronunciation. I wish I didn't close out of that now. Actually, give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. Also, took that time to take a bit of a break. Yeah, it's Ernest. I don't know why I thought Ernst would be correct, but yeah, he's alright. Takes some time to get going, but once he does, he's pretty good. So, overall, alright. Very, very similar to Vankar. Not much more to say about them. So, Lyle is, third archer, and he's actually... He's like a fusion of the archers and the centaurs. This does mean on terrain maps his movement is lacking, but by the time he joins, there's not too many terrain maps. There's a few more, but they're kind of on the decline. It's mostly like open field maps and indoor maps. So that's nice. He gets 7 move, and maybe it's just because I'm used to Fire Emblem, but it's kind of weird that the mounted archer has the best move. Or, oh, no shit. Has the best attack. And yeah, his base attack is pretty high. So he does join a bit under-leveled. I believe he joins at level 8. You know, he's a great attacker right out of the way. And, you know, he can, you know, attack 2 to 3 range. He's got a lot of coverage because of his high move as well. And yeah, his attack stays high, and that's really all you need out of an archer, I feel. So I'll put him in B tier. Not much more to say about him. He's always one of those characters like I feel like should be higher, but just he's definitely good, but he's nothing crazy, but, you know, I still like him. And he like wheels up his bazooka. It's really weird, but yeah. And with the Buster Shot, I mean, this guy chunks. It's pretty nice. Now we have Blue, I think is how you say that. Blue is going to go in D tier. I'll put him a little over Arthur, but I think Hans is a little better. A lot of people really like Blue. I really like Blue. He's a really fun unit to use. But he is very underleveled. He has a very, very poor start. His defense is really low. His attack is pretty low. He has 5 move and he flies, which is nice. It does, can help him get kills. He can position himself pretty well, but yeah, you need to either baby him or grind him up, and there's not that much of the game left. So it's not really worth it at all. But I do love using this guy. I mean, after he promotes, he gets insane amounts of attack and defense, and it looks pretty cool. I mean, he's a dragon, especially when he promotes. Attack animation looks kind of off to me before he promotes. But yeah, just not much more to say. Just not really worth it, but yeah, he's fun to use. So next up we got Musashi. contrast to blue, Musashi starts off with some incredible stats. Like, they are ridiculously high. Like, he'll be comparable to, like, a trained up Max and Xylo. Now, he does only have 5 move, which is why I put him at the bottom of A, but yeah, I mean, this guy, insane amounts of attack, insane amounts of defense. And you get him for free, and even as he continues to level up, he has pretty good growth. He'll get a lot of stats, and he stays pretty useful. And I like him for that. I'll do that. Only reason I don't put him any higher is because, you know, 5 move, not the greatest, can fall behind sometimes, compared to Centaurs, and even like Max, Gort, and Luke with their 6 move, and yeah. But, you know, I like him a lot. Pretty cool character, really easy to miss. Kinda sucks that they made a secret character very easy to miss like that, because I feel like he's great for, like, beginners. But whatever. I get Tarasu. He goes into B tier. He's another heal bot, but he comes with Aura, so that automatically makes him pretty good in my opinion. And he can get up to level Aura 4. It does come at level 28, and he does join very late. So he'll probably only get up to Aura 2, Aura 3 if you're lucky. I believe Aura 2 comes at level 20, while Aura 3 comes at level 24. Let me check my notes. Yeah, that's what I've written down. So, but you know, he also has a shield spell, which can be alright. It blocks magic from attacking you, but it also blocks you from getting buffs and healing, as I found out, so it might be okay. I don't find it that useful. I thought it was gonna be like boost, but for defense, but it's not. It's weird. But, you know, I like him. Not much more to say, just heal bot, but pretty useful one. Next up, we got Aleph, I think is how you say her name. She's a 3rd mage, and her specialty is bolt magic. Now, I put her in D tier. I'd probably say she's better than these two. She gets bolt, I believe she joins at level 15. Yeah, level 15. So it is only 2 levels until she gets Bolt 2, and Bolt 2 is really useful, but she doesn't get Bolt 3 to level 22 and Bolt 4 into level 30, so and since she joins so late, you really have to focus on her, or, you know, grind, but we're not counting that, before she gets really anything better, because, yeah, Blaze 2 and Freeze 2, those just aren't going to cut it. Henri and Teo honestly probably most definitely have their level 4 spells, unless you have not been focusing on that, and they're like, they'd have to be really behind. I mean, that's just... yeah. So because of that, not very useful, but she's fun to use. I like the high bolt spells. They look cool, but yeah, not very useful. You gotta put a lot of effort into her, and by that point, the game's pretty much over. So, but I don't think she's F tier because, you know, she has bolt at base and she gets bolt 2 somewhat early, and that's... you're never gonna be bad with Bolt 2. Other problem is low MP, so she's really only gonna do like 1 or 2 casts of, especially Bolt 2. I mean, that thing's like 15 MP. Her MP growth is it starts a little low, but I guess it gets pretty good, so that's at least 2 casts of Bolt 2. Looking at averages, but I don't know. Not terribly useful, but you know, it could do worse. And then, you know, low defense, but so you do have to be careful with her. So, but yeah. So next up we got Adam. Now if you thought Blue had low stats, this guy's even worse. This guy has like, I think he has about like 5 less attack than Blue. And he comes like 6 maps later. Don't remember exactly, but yeah, Adam just struggles to do any damage. His defense is actually pretty good. He's got like 35 base HP and like around 28 defense, so he doesn't die. But, you know, he's just not going to do any damage, and you have to put in so much work. Honestly, for a worse Blue, because, you know, he has 5 move and he doesn't fly, so he's really just... He's just Musashi, but much worse. And it's, by the time, you have to grind, I don't think there's any way you could even really get him to promo with the amount of maps you have left, just using him normally. And once you do, there's like not that many maps left, so there's really not any point. But I mean, he's cool. He's a robot, so I'm gonna put him in. Since he's tanky, you could maybe make the argument he's better than some of these guys, but but then he also, and then the low move, I'm gonna put him in F tier. Maybe that's not fair, but he's going in F tier, I don't care. And last but not least, we got Hanzo, I think is how you say his name. I'll put him in B tier. He's pretty good. Has pretty good stats. He gets a few spells. No attacking spells. I think he has sleep and dispel. And this website's wrong. These are not his stats. I don't know why. I guess because I don't know, but yeah, those stats are wrong. He has like about 40 base attack and I think about like 30-ish defense. Probably not like 30-ish. I really should have wrote that down. Okay, actually, it says... Okay, yeah, maybe about like 30-ish defense. I should have wrote that down, but yeah, you know, he could survive an okay amount. Yeah, he gets sleep, dispel. He gets shield as well. At level 15, these really aren't useful, but nice little bonus. But yeah, mainly I think almost closed out of that again. Mainly, I think you're just gonna want to attack with him, and you know he has 7 moves, so that's pretty good. Matches Xylo and your Centaurs and your Birdmen. Does pretty good damage. Could survive an okay amount. He's all right, but yeah. But he's pretty good. He's all right or good. I always have him bordering on B and C tier, but I want to put him in B tier because, I mean, he comes for free. You know, you have to train him, and he's pretty good. And I think he grows decently too. So, yeah. Well, oh, that's gonna be my list. Let me just see. Probably move you there. Yeah, I think that's good. Well, I'm gonna say this is my Shining Force tier list. Well, Yeah, yep. This is gonna be my tier list. So, if you guys disagreed with anything, I'd love to hear your tier list in the description or in the comments. Feel free to tell me what I did wrong. I'm sure I messed something up, and I'm sure I said something incorrect. I'm going to link the tier list and this website in the description. Yeah, you guys leave a comment if you leave a comment on your tier list, or if you disagree with anything. I'll try and respond to it if I can. I like talking about this game. And I will be doing a tier list for Shining Force 2. I just started playing the game, and it's a pretty long game. It's gonna be a little bit of time before I finish that. Although I'm gonna be on break for school soon, so maybe it won't be that long. But yeah, definitely will be making a Shining Force 2 tier list because I love that game. And so stay tuned for that. I'm out of here. Have a good night.